This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked, blissed? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're broadcasting live high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Studio A. Alex is producing the broadcast in Minnesota, and today in the broadcast classroom is world-renowned Dr. Norman Shealy. Dr. Shealy entered Duke University at 16 and Duke Medical School at 19. He was elected to Phi Beta Kappa, a prestigious honor society. And Dr. Shealy was a neurosurgeon resident for 5 years at Harvard's Massachusetts General Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Shealy.
Good morning, Vincent. How y'all?
You are from the Carolinas, aren't you?
You are. Yeah, you bet.
Hey, I had a question for you. I know you're blissed. You're always blissed. The question is tart cherry juice. Can you discuss the benefits of that? Because I know you talk about it on your broadcast in the afternoons.
It's one of my most favorites because cost and everything else. In 1 quart of tart cherry juice, Nature's Blessed, the one we use, in 1 quart you get as much as 120 apples. Can you imagine that? I mean, that's the ORAC unit, the antioxidant capacity. It lowers blood pressure. It is anti-inflammatory. It lowers cholesterol. It's got melatonin in it, so it helps you sleep. 2 tablespoons, 1 ounce a day is the recommended dosage, if you will, and that contains 3,750 ORACs, the antioxidant capacity. And so it's the least expensive, simplest way I know to get good antioxidants. And it tastes good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Dr. Shealy, do you also recommend eating like Bing cherries in addition?
Oh, yeah. Well, I personally think all fruits that are as healthy as you can get them are good for you. In general, I have to admit that I prefer fruits to most vegetables. But I eat vegetables because they're good for you.
Mm-hmm. I have a question from one of our class members, and it relates to the colonoscopies. I remember I had one, and my doctor somehow convinced me, and I'm not sure I would be convinced again, that I absolutely needed it. It's kind of like, you have to have one, Vinny, because you're over 40 years old or 45, and I'm way past that. And I know, Dr. Shealy, you have not had one. And I know my mom.
And I'm only 80. So maybe in another 80 years I might consider that. Not anytime soon.
Well, so if you eat right and you eat high-fiber foods, aren't your risks of getting a colon cancer or polyps dramatically reduced?
Of course. Now, if you are a fast food junkie, well, you've got other things that are more worse than colon cancer. So.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to die sooner. And you're going to have all kinds of medical problems if you participate in America's favorite so-called fast food junk. Mm-hmm. But personally, I think if you have good health habits, you don't necessarily need all those tests.
Well, let's talk about a colonoscopy. Now, I remember reading, I was on the workbench and they handed me this form, and I was the object of their work, and they said, fill out this form and or read this form and sign it. And it said, there are some things that could happen to you, and you could die as a result of this. And I said, wait a minute, whoa. People die as a result of this? And they said, yeah, but it doesn't happen too much. It happens once in a while.
It's only 100% if it's you.
That wasn't all that encouraging. So, Dr. Shealy, there are risks involved with a colonoscopy.
Well, the first risk to me would be drinking a gallon of a laxative.
Oh, man.
You only drink 2 quarts at night and another 2 quarts 5 hours before you go. I mean, I would be throwing up and not able to get in the car to go.
That is a really unpleasant experience, and they say you've got to drink it. And you're on when you do that, you're on a really short leash to the bathroom.
You might as well just spend the night on the toilet.
Oh yeah. And so, and I'm wondering, is there a benefit of doing that kind of a cleanse? I mean, just doing that. Is there a benefit in doing that, or not?
Not unless you're constipated.
Oh,
I think it's worth talking about this because, a lot of people don't have what I would call decent normal bowel movements. Mm-hmm. You need 2 bowel movements a day. That's, 3 is okay. And if you get 1 every day, you're slightly constipated. If you get 1 a week, you're very constipated. So, you do need to get rid of the byproducts of food. And they ought to go out within 24 hours or less of when you eat them, what you can't use. And so it's important to take good care of your colon. But eating the right foods, real food, and lots of water, almost nobody will have a problem.
Dr. Shealy, is the colon or is the intestines the center for the immune system?
Well, of course. Actually, the intestines have more neurochemicals, all the things like cortisol even, and serotonin. They produce much more serotonin than your brain does. So they do that, and they also are a phenomenal immune enhancer if your colon health is good.
Okay, so it's obvious to all of us listening, I believe, that if you eat the wrong foods, you will get the equivalent of plaque in your digestive system, in your colon, and you will not be able to absorb the nutrients of the food that you eat. And when that happens, you will become ill and have less vitality, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No question about it.
So everything that you've said leads to garbage in, you're going to be sick. You have to have good food, you have to have exercise, you have to have the right supplements, or you're just not going to be at the optimal health. And the reason I'm saying this is you sent me an article from written by Dr. Mercola, and he talks about this new study finds sunlight and how it boosts nitric oxide production. The reason I'm mentioning that is it's a very quick recap of what you've been saying for 23 years on the radio.
That's right.
Yeah. Before we go into that, can we talk about the risks of a colonoscopy, though? Why is there the possibility of death?
Well, first of all, you're put to sleep, essentially. And
okay. Is there a risk in that?
There's a risk of dying from the anesthetic.
Okay.
Secondly, they're sticking a rigid, it's somewhat slightly flexible, but it's essentially a rigid tube into your colon. You can rupture the colon. Not very common, but it happens.
Mm-hmm. And this tube is like, it's like a garden hose, right?
Exactly. It's probably a little bit stiffer than a garden hose. And maybe a little bit bigger. Yes, it is a little bit bigger.
Well, I saw this thing, and I thought, that can't be it. This thing is like 16 feet long. I thought, no, that must be, the janitor must be using that when he hoses out this room. That can't possibly, can't possibly be it.
I just honestly don't think that unless you have colon symptoms and don't have a good diet, that I can recommend a routine colonoscopy.
Yeah, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I remember saying, wait, hold on just a second. What's this part about dying? And, I had just signed it, and I was reviewing it, and I was out. They figured, let's just push this needle, and we don't have to answer that question. And I was out. Next thing I knew, I was in recovery, and I was fine. So, but, when I saw that, it really looks like a black garden hose. And I wonder about lots of things. Like, one of the things I wonder about is, how sterile is it? And if they do puncture my colon, what are they going to do about that? And is anybody going to be around to even notice? So I don't think I'd want to have another one of those. I really don't think so. So you can die from the anesthesia, and isn't the anesthesia bringing you just about down to death? Isn't that what happens?
Well, of course. I mean, if you didn't have somebody monitoring you and helping you breathe and other such things, yes, you'd be dead. I mean, it's the way you euthanize animals.
Okay, so when an animal is euthanized, it's taking them to the point where we would be sedated or asleep for a surgery, but they just push it a little farther and then everything stops.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a pretty sad note, isn't it? Okay, so colonoscopy, the risks are from the anesthesia and from that garden hose perforating the intestine. Are there any other risks? Obviously, infection. Are there any other?
If they see something like a polyp, of course, they cut it out. They take a little snip, so you could bleed, and that's just another potential risk.
Okay, of loss of blood. Okay, do they cauterize that? What do they do?
Well, I would hope so. I don't know. Having never done one or even seen one, I can't be guaranteed that they cauterize.
Dr. Shealy's going to be with us at the Get Prepared Expo. That's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Lebanon, Missouri. And we're going to be talking about health, nutrition, improving your endurance and vitality, and reducing blood pressure. We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, can you share with us some of your latest thoughts about health and medicine and what we might need to know from you?
Well, I think the single most important thing is that you need to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Definitely cannot depend upon any physician to do it for you. For example, and this is one of my favorite peeves, last Friday I saw an 82-year-old man who had 2-level lumbar laminectomy, that is, they took out the bone over the lower 2 parts of his spine. 6 years ago, no help whatsoever. I had never seen him before, but he stopped in to visit me, and I found something called a sacral shear. That means his sacrum is rotated in 2 directions. It took me 30 seconds to correct it. I am the only MD that I know who knows how to even examine, let alone fix, a sacral shear. Now, the 10% of osteopathic physicians, DOs, who still do OMT, know how to fix this. Interestingly, I've seen hundreds of people with this problem who've never had it diagnosed by a chiropractor. There's something about that particular movement of the sacrum. And it's about 15% of all people with chronic low back pain. And as a neurosurgeon, I'm particularly peeved that people that operate on the back not even having checked the position of the sacrum. Now, that's just one example. And
Dr. Shealy, you did this without an X-ray or with an X-ray?
Without an X-ray. It takes me a maximum of 1 minute to make the diagnosis.
Well, that's why I was asking, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about later in the broadcast is the Veterans Administration and the mistakes that they make in their hospital. So here we have a 1-minute procedure for you to diagnose a problem for a person who has chronic back pain, and you not only diagnosed it, but you fixed it. And this man has gone with this for years?
Yeah, and I followed through with him, and that was last Friday. And as of Monday, he was still a lot better, and I suspect he'll stay a lot better. I mean, it's really tragic that physicians don't do complete physical exams. They don't do complete neurologic exams. My father-in-law fell and broke his hip at age 90. And to make a long story short, I went down to visit a month later because he wasn't getting out of the hospital, and they were accusing him of not helping. Well, he was paralyzed from the waist down. But they had never done a neurologic exam. I mean, this kind of thing today is rampant in our society, and of course then they want to give you drugs. Did you know that if you went outside for an hour in the sunshine, you can raise your nitric oxide enough that you might not need anything to control your blood pressure?
Well, actually, I do know that, and the reason I know that, Dr. Shealy, is I have the post that I printed out right here in the studio with me, because you sent me that post from about that, and I put it on our website. It's available on the website right now. But, you know, you're absolutely right, because when you said that we are responsible for our own health, we really are. But how many of us, and I was listening to you say that, it's obvious, but we're not paying attention to it. We expect that when we go to a doctor, we go for our annual visit or our quarterly visit or whatever the frequency is, we expect that doctor to be able to overcome all the bad things that we've done with either advice or medicine. And we are responsible for our own health, exactly as you said. And I'm so glad you said it, because we forget that. We forget that if we eat junk food, if we eat red popsicles, if we eat green popsicles, or if we go to the Chinese factory outlet and we get some beverages that are multicolored, every single color of the rainbow, I mean, really, every color of the rainbow, if we consume those artificial colors, artificial flavors, we are doing damage to ourselves. You're absolutely right. And by the way, that's what the Get Prepared Expo is all about, to expose us to what the truth is, to what we need to do to take care of ourselves on every physical level. And Dr. Norman Shealy is going to be doing that. He's going to be helping you lower your blood pressure naturally with food and supplements. And he's going to take blood pressure readings, and he's going to lower blood pressure in probably 70% of us. When we come back, I'd love to hear from Dr. Shealy exactly how he's going to do that. Dr. Norman Shealy, medical doctor, researcher, 3 times PhD, Native American medicine man, farmer, author. Shealy was telling us about sunlight, sunshine, and how you can reduce your blood pressure. Dr. Shealy, please continue with that, because it's absolutely fascinating.
Well, it's interesting, of course, that it doesn't last forever, just as any nitric oxide doesn't last forever in your body, because you use it up. Every cell in the body needs it. Nitric oxide is one of the single most important chemicals in your body, and it's produced in your body if you get the right intake of food, like beets. Now, unfortunately, you have to eat about a pint or more beets a day to get a response. And it does last longer than an hour in the sunshine, but an hour in the sunshine somehow allows your body to make nitric oxide. And so it's one of the reasons I think that I particularly like being out in the sun. I mean, even in the hottest of weather, I spend at least 2 hours a day, if I can, outside, because it feels so good. It is energizing. And, of course, nitric oxide is essential for energy. Now, of course, if you can't spend an hour or more in the sun every day, my favorite would be Chianti Nitro Extreme, because 2 doses of that a day will last you 24 hours.
Dr. Shealy, women who run the households, the kitchens, like to keep clutter away. And Mrs. Finelli does not like clutter in the kitchen, her kitchen, and rightfully so. However, one of the things that does not get put away is the bottle of Kyani Nitro Extreme. No, it stays out there. It stays out there on the island or on the counter. And when I get up in the morning, I take 15 drops. When Mrs. Finelli gets up, 15 drops. When my mom gets up, 15 drops. And so it's there. It's not something that we forget because it's out of sight, out of mind. It's right there. And also, we take it at night before bedtime. And I really believe that I'm running a little bit smarter when I take Kyani Nitro Extreme because I've experimented with being on it versus being off it. And I'm convinced that it reduces age spots. I'm convinced that it helps you have a restful, dream-filled sleep. And I'm convinced I'm a little bit smarter and I have more energy. I really believe all those things. Am I mistaken, Dr. Shealy, or have you seen bona fide evidence in your research of the same thing?
Absolutely right on. No question about it. It is, as a single supplement, the most important for almost everybody, adults at least.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been to the meetups where you have been to many meetups, and people have been waiting in line anxiously, where they wanted to try it and see if it would lower their blood pressure. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, your results are significant reductions in blood pressure within 30 minutes of taking it 70% of the time. Is that about right? That
is right, and that's almost twice as good as any drug without the complications.
And my understanding is at the expo, you're willing to prove that to anyone who's willing to try it. Is that right?
That is right. And, of course, if you don't have high blood pressure, there's no reason for me to check you, even though it has other benefits. Mm-hmm. Couldn't measure them. Now, I also am going to offer those who are interested who don't respond, because 30% don't, and nobody, nothing's 100%. So I am going to give them to try chlorine, youth formula, and my essentials, because I believe that for those people who don't respond to Nitro Extreme, it's because they're deficient in one or another of those.
I remember broadcasting with you and Dan Swindell at the Doubletree one afternoon in Springfield, Missouri. And Dan Swindell had he was flying all over the country from point to point to point and had very little sleep. I mean, he was probably 3 hours of sleep in 2 days at the most. And just before the broadcast, he pulled out his little bottle of Nitro Extreme out of his pocket, and he took it because he said it would help him be alert during the broadcast. So it's not just Dan Swindell. It's not just me. It's a bunch of us that do this.
Oh, yeah. Again, I've got scores, literally, of people who don't want to be without it, and I don't blame them.
Dr. Shealy, what does it do for the circulatory system? Does it make it more pliable, more elastic? Does it help reduce hardening of the arteries, that old term? What actually does it do?
All of the above. It does. It dilates the blood vessel, allows them to open up normally. And so it gives increased blood flow, increased oxygen, and increased health long term.
I mentioned several weeks ago that we had this chicken, and she was near the end of her life expectancy. And we have a veranda right outside the kitchen door, which would, I guess, be considered the back door of our farmhouse. And as this chicken became more and more ill, more and more weak, she just hung out right on the threshold of the door, and she didn't want to move. and she couldn't move. And her comb on top of her head was kind of white. It wasn't the red, the deep red of a normal healthy chicken. And so I gave her a dilute amount of Kyani Nitro Extreme, very, very dilute. I tried to approximate what I would take based on her weight, and I gave it to her day after day. And I gave it to her actually 3 times a day, in a spoon of water with water, and she drank it and drank it. And 3 weeks later, now I've only given it to her probably 5, 6, 7 days. 3 weeks later, she's absolutely healthy, doing all the normal stuff that she would do, eating bugs, on tick patrol in the backyard. She's perfectly fixed. Amazing.
That's over a month ago.
Yeah, and she's doing so well. It's amazing. And I pay attention to the animals, and the body can heal itself in a lot of ways if you give it the right nutrition. I'm convinced of it. And I saw it. I saw it with this chicken. We have a cat, same problem. The cat obviously cat didn't have a comb, but the cat was failing. She's probably close to 15 to 18 years old, real thin. Gave her the Kyani Nitro Extreme. She's coming back to health. It's taking a little longer than a chicken, but she's doing well. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I'm here to say I saw it. And I experimented on my own. So, and I told Dan Swindell about this, and he said veterinarians are using it to remove animals who are on the euthanasia list from the list, just by giving them Kyani Nitro Extreme. So, class, this is not a commercial. This is an endorsement. I take the supplement, and I have for, I guess, about a year now. And so is Mrs. Finelli, my mom. We all take it religiously. And Dr. Shealy does. And Dr. Shealy, I saw that woman who came into the meetup. Blood pressure was 214 over, I don't know the bottom number. She was past due for the emergency room. She decided to come to the meetup instead of going to the hospital. She came to the meetup, and you reversed her high blood pressure within a half an hour. Not normal, but within 3 days you did have it normal.
Exactly. And of course, now I have, out of 200 people, I have 140 who've responded that way.
That's 70%.
You got it.
That's exactly 70%. That's really neat. So, Dr. Shealy, in addition to taking a Kyani Nitro Extreme to boost your reserves, your immune system, improve vitality, what other things should we be doing in addition to that supplement?
Well, of course, I think you should be eating a minimum of 5 servings a day of fruits and vegetables. And I try to get 7 most days. And I do. Some days I get 9. Mm-hmm. That's the next thing on my list. Now, the next one on my list would be physical exercise. Now, personally, I like a minimum of an hour a day. And I suspect you get that or more. But
yes.
Mine is planned exercise because, I don't have any work that has to involve a lot of exercise. But I like 60 to 90 minutes a day of physical activity. It doesn't have to be vigorous. It can be moderate, like a brisk walk or anything like that. And then third is sleeping, a minimum of 7 to 8 hours every night.
Dr. Shealy, when I was reading this article that we've got posted on the website that you sent me about sunlight, there was something that absolutely caught my attention, and that was walking barefoot. And I'll tell you why.
Grounding.
Around the farm, we don't walk barefoot because there's manure on the farm, and there's a lot of animals here. So, and I read many years ago, probably 30 years ago, that you can get parasites and worms through your feet by walking, in soil. So I don't do that. But this article that you sent me talks about how you can remove. You can help antioxidize your body by walking barefoot. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
You are reading that correct. And in fact, There's a guy who wrote a whole book on this several years ago, and I've tested that as well. And for people who aren't able, and of course in the winter, even in Missouri, you don't go barefoot outside. It's not healthy or safe. But there are sheets that have little silver threads through them that then are attached to a ground, which you can use a regular, the three-pronged ground thing. You use just the round one.
Right.
And that will ground your body. And there are significant health benefits from doing that. In other words, it is a way of becoming more natural without necessarily having to go outside, although I prefer the sunlight with it.
So basically, we are going to ground our body to the earth and reduce the potential for cancer. Dr. Shealy and I are going to talk about that when we come back. I think that's absolutely fascinating. Dr. Norman Shealy, normshealy.com or Shealy. Dr. Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, I'm absolutely dumbfounded. I just realized that when I was very young, probably around 12 years old, I took an antenna. I made an antenna maybe 125 feet long, something like that, maybe 100 feet long. Just a piece of wire. I attached it to a tree with an insulator on it and stretched that wire out, and then took one end of that wire and attached it to a milliamp meter, and the other end to a ground rod. And I measured that there's current in the air. There's electricity in the air all the time. And it comes from radio stations and TV stations and so forth. Well, I just realized I'm speechless almost that we need to be grounded. We need to get that out of our systems. We need to literally ground our systems to get that electromagnetic radiation out of our bodies by having our feet on the ground.
You bet. Hugging a tree is good for you.
Well, that would do very much a similar thing by grounding yourself to.
Semi-facetious, but it's real.
It is real, Dr. Shealy, because there is moisture in the bark of the tree. The tree is connected to the ground through the roots, and yes, through indirectly, you would be grounding yourself by hugging a tree. If your body's in contact.
Do you know the work of Cleve Baxter with plants?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
I met Cleve in 1974 at an international meeting, and he could stand there on the stage and have these great big philodendrons move when he asked them to. And he did a lot of work of measuring the galvanic skin response of the leaves of plants. And so they also have this, not even a big tree, have this considerable electromagnetic aspect to them.
Now, I do remember something many years ago with plants being sensitive to sounds, and so if you were to raise your voice and to start screaming at them, there would be a reaction. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Exactly. Although he didn't have to scream at them because he, had cultured this relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then the next question is, when we cut a head of cabbage, does the plant feel that?
Well, galvanic skin response would say yes, there's an electrical reaction. Whether they have a brain, that would be the same as I was feeling something. I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. So, Dr. Shealy, we talked about sunlight and we talked about exercise. So we can reduce our blood pressure by simply doing what we used to do, right? We used to play outside when we were children. We'd play outside. Our parents would tell us to go get some sunshine, which could mean playing a pickup game of, ball game, or just running around, or tag and hiding and go seek, whatever it was. But it was out in the sunshine. And that would be in the summer, the spring, the winter, the fall. Didn't matter. We were out there getting some amount of sunshine because we were told it was healthy. And as a matter of fact, we were told it's not healthy to stay inside all the time.
Well, all of that is true. And it's still not healthy today. Some things don't change with time.
Well, you're right, Dr. Shealy. And now let's talk about mood. How does the sunlight affect our moods?
Well, first of all, it helps you make serotonin, the number one mood enhancer, the one that makes you feel bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and okay. Mm-hmm. And so it goes through the eyes, and that goes through the brain and actually starts a stimulation in the pineal gland, which then comes back down through the pituitary gland to help keep your entire endocrine system healthy.
Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and we're going to come back on the other side of the top of the hour news. And I'm going to tell you about an update that I have for you about the Get Prepared Expo with Chief Cloud Piler. And he's printed up a sign, Chief Cloud Piler of Nemenhah. Dr. Norman Shealy's a medicine man. I'm a medicine man. And we're going to tell you about this sign that we're going to have at the Get Prepared Expo. No kidding. You won't believe it. We'll be right back.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2, USAPrepares.com with Dr. Norman Shealy, senior USAPrepares.com instructor. Dr. Shealy's going to be with us at the Get Prepared Expo, and he's going to be taking your blood pressure, if you'd like, and he will provide you with a food supplement and take your blood pressure a half hour later to see how well that works for you. Dr. Norman Shealy, it's always great to be with you on the broadcast. We have Sam Bushman. Sam Bushman's on the line. Sam Bushman is a veteran broadcaster of about 20 years. Welcome, Sam Bushman.
Thank you very much, sir. Delighted to be here.
Hey, Sam, you're going to be presenting a seminar at the Expo, and can you give us maybe a 1 or 2 minute piece on what you're going to be telling us?
All right. The DVD that I do is called He Who Owns the Media Makes the Rules. And it's kind of like the idea of he who owns the gold makes the rules. Yes. The reality is when you own the mainstream press, and by the way, the mainstream press is owned by a very few number of incredibly large corporations that have an incredible globalist, tyrannical agenda. And so I basically expose the mainstream press for who they are. And I talk about even your favorite talk show hosts, if you listen to, say, Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, those guys, I expose them for who they are. On one hand, they run around and try to tell you they're not part of the mainstream press. I'm here to tell you they are. For example, Rush Limbaugh says he's not part of the mainstream press, but you know what? He's on more radio stations than everybody. And he's blatantly admitted in mainstream press articles that he's just nothing but a water boy for the Republican Party.
I've heard him say it
himself.
I've heard him say it.
He goes on and talks about how everybody does drive-by media. In other words, that's they take a pot shot at you, and because you're smaller than the mainstream press, you don't have the ability to defend yourself. But then he launches right into a trashing of Ron Paul and does a drive-by on Ron Paul, virtually speaking, by attacking him. Ron Paul doesn't get a chance to respond. Now, it doesn't matter if you like Ron Paul or not. It doesn't matter if you like Rush Limbaugh or not. He pitches himself as not part of the mainstream press. And he even mocks the mainstream press by talking about how gracious George W. Bush is. And he puts together this montage of this, everybody and their dog saying George Bush is gracious, gracious, gracious. And he educates Americans about how that just proves that you're a media insider if you're willing to use the term gracious. And if you don't, you're pretty much out. And then he ends the piece by saying George Bush is gracious. Anyway, I play sound bites, I show video, I show Sean Hannity getting caught in faking video and having to apologize to his viewers. The list goes on and on and on as we take on the mainstream press like never before, and we wind up, Vince Finelli, with solutions of how you can help us restore the republic of the tradition of our founders by taking back the media. And so after my New Media Takes Center Stage, He Who Owns the Media Makes the Rules seminar, you and I and several other talk show hosts are going to do Radio 101 and help folks listen or learn how to get involved in radio to become talk show hosts, how they can challenge the mainstream press at every turn, how they can get past call screeners, and more. So I'm telling you, it's going to be a bang-up opportunity at the Preparedness Expo, getpreparedexpo.com. This weekend, I will be there.
Sam, I want to thank you for that. And I'll tell you, the most senior broadcaster who will be with us is on the air with us right now. Dr. Shealy, you've been on the air for 23-plus years. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm senior in more than one way, so yes.
And Dr. Shealy, you've seen it all on the radio. And Dr. Shealy, I'd like to invite you to be with us. If you'll be at the Get Prepared Expo, and if you would like to participate in this particular seminar that we're going to do with Sam Bushman Bushman's going to do it. I'm going to do it. I think Joyce Riley's going to be there. Well, she'll be with us doing it. Michael Evans. And if you'd like to participate, you are certainly welcome, because there's not one of us that has more experience on the radio than you about how radio actually works. And, there are a lot of people on the other side of the equation who are trying to manipulate the message. So you're certainly invited to be with us. Hey, Sam, I really appreciate the call. Thanks so much for being with us. And I'll see you tomorrow.
You got it, buddy. I'll be flying into Missouri. I'll be there ready to go to present my seminars. I'll be ready to support all the efforts. And most importantly, I'll be delighted to attend the dinners put on by freezedryguy.com. And then most importantly, I look forward to meeting Dr. Shealy and all the other presenters there. There's a lot of us, and we're all going to be together to help folks get prepared and help folks learn what they need to do for their families. GetPreparedExpo.com. Thanks, Vince.
Hey, thanks so much, Sam.
Looking forward to it.
Dr. Shealy, he is a very interesting man, and I'll say some things that about him, and I'll just tell him. Dr. Shealy, I met him for the first time in St. Charles, Missouri, about a month ago at the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Conference. He invited me, and Sheriff Richard Mack was there, and so I was in the parking lot of the center there, and so I called him on my cell phone, and I said, "Hey, Sam, I'm in the parking lot. Where would you like me to go?" He said, "Well, let's go to the lobby. I'll meet you in the lobby." He said, "What are you wearing?" So I told him what I was wearing. He said, "Okay, I'll see you in the lobby." So I get in the lobby, and I'm looking around, and I hear, "Vince Finelli!" So he's calling me, and Dr. Shealy, he's blind. He's 100% totally blind.
Wow.
And I didn't know it. Now, he's been broadcasting 20 years. About 20 years now, and he's blind. And he has overcome that as a handicap. Now, he probably would say it's not a handicap. He'd probably say it's an advantage. I've seen him give a speech, look at the audience, look at the camera, look at the audience, look at the camera, and he's never seen either one of them. I asked him how he would describe black versus white versus blue versus green, and he told me there's a difference, and he was trying to explain to me what it meant to him. Very interesting, isn't it?
It is fascinating, and I am always awed by people who cope that well.
Oh man. I didn't even know it. I mean, literally, I was talking to him on the phone for weeks, and he'd say, "Hey, I'll see you here. I'm looking forward to seeing you." And he would use the word "see," and he does all the time. He told me he's looking forward to coming to the farm and seeing the farm, and literally, he's without sight. He is one of the most amazing people, one of the most courageous, strongest people, has the most energy I've ever seen. And you heard that in his voice, class. So he'll be at the Get Prepared Expo along with Dr. Norman Shealy. Dr. Shealy, I mentioned Chief Cloudpiler is going to be with us, and I talked to him last night. And I said, Chief, are you bringing a sign? He said, yeah, I've got it all done, ready to go. And so he's going to have a sign that we're going to put up after we take a vote to see if the majority of us want to consecrate the convention as sacred. And when we do that, we will be putting up the sign that says, if you're an on-duty government employee and you would like to attend the Get Prepared Expo, you may apply. And there's a $10 application fee. It's the same fee as if you walk in the door and you want to participate. So we're not charging them more. We're not charging them less. We're being absolutely fair. And all we want to do is know who they are, why they're there, and what they plan to learn, and who they're going to share that information with. So that's one of the highlights of the Get Prepared Expo. It's never been done before, Dr. Shealy. Never has a convention been consecrated as sacred as an event like this. So I think we're breaking ground. How do you feel about that?
I think it's wonderful. The time has come, the walrus said.
And Dr. Shealy, you are, in addition to being a 3-times PhD, neurosurgeon, brain surgeon, surgeon of the year, you are and medical doctor. You are an Indian or Native American medicine man, yes?
You bet, because I do consider that it is one of the sacred fields of healing.
Dr. Shealy, we have with us Tony Pache from Springfield, Missouri. Tony came to us from South Africa in 1999 with his family, and his wife's family farm, 8,200 acres, was stolen from them at gunpoint by a rogue government. Welcome, Tony Pache.
Hey, Vinny, Dr. Shealy, good to see you, or listen to you, should I say.
Tony, you're going to be presenting a seminar at the Get Prepared Expo. Can you give us a minute about what you're going to teach us?
Yeah, Vinny, 2 things. One is, hopefully we're going to be doing this together. Wanted to introduce the concept of the need for us to join up as a community. I believe, really, it is the only true hope for rural and urban Americans to get together and fight the coming onslaught, really, that's coming our way from domestic enemies within and without.
Yeah. Dr. Shealy, how do you feel about community? Isn't that something that you have been working on building for all the time that you've been broadcasting over 23 years?
Well, I've been interested in this for at least 40 years because obviously it is a true community of socially interested people that makes life worthwhile. In fact, we know that networking is one of the most important things you can do to stay healthy.
I absolutely agree.
That's a very interesting point, to stay healthy. So, I think that's something that many of us might have overlooked, Dr. Shealy. I guess that would be the nurture plus the nature plus the camaraderie plus the learning atmosphere of learning from others in the community, sharing, lifting the other end of the board because it's so heavy to lift it by yourself, the raising of the barns, the spirituality. You are absolutely right on the money. Absolutely.
Yep. I think it actually helps your oxytocin system, Vince.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, Dr. Shealy. This is what the Get Prepared Expo is about. As we meet the instructors, they're such an interesting group of people, all sharing, all willing to contribute. Tony Pache, Down to Earth Foods, on the website, page 1. Tony, thanks so much for being with us. Dr. Shealy and I will be right back, and we'll talk more about medicine, survival medicine, when we come back. Shealy's with us, and I remember a saying many, many, many years ago when I was much, much younger, that laughter is the best medicine. And I was wondering as I was listening to the commercials through the segment there, the end of the segment, that is laughter the best medicine? And are people who are happy, who exhibit laughter, are they maybe a little healthier? Maybe is their outlook a little better than those who don't laugh and don't exhibit those
actually
positive?
A lot better. Norman Cousins popularized this over 30 years ago. He was a well-known editor, and he developed something very serious, rheumatoid spondylitis, rheumatoid arthritis of the spine. And he essentially cured himself with laughter and vitamin C. And he wrote a book that became quite a good bestseller. And I actually have done some research on laughter, not what happens when you laugh at a comedy versus what happens if you just laugh. And actually just laughing raises beta endorphins as well as spontaneous laughter to a comedy. So laughter is both physically and physiologically and biochemically good for you.
Dr. Shealy, when I started broadcasting, I got a call from a fellow broadcaster, and he said he was listening to me. He says, "What's wrong with you? How come you're laughing? Like, come on." And I said, "Well, I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing. I enjoy what I'm doing, and first of all, I can't believe it that I'm allowed to do what I'm doing, and and I'm really happy about it. So it's just kind of a natural reaction to me. And of course, I take bliss before I go on the air, and puts a big grin on my face, and off I go. And that's it. That's just the way I am. And I'm pretty healthy, Dr. Shealy. You're pretty healthy, and there are a bunch of us who go around smiling, and I think we're healthier. I really do. I think our outlook is better. We don't go looking for the problems. I mean, when we uncover the problems, we talk about them. We find the solutions for them. But it's none of us would be able to work in a government office. Do you realize that?
Well, if I were working in a government office, I doubt that I would be laughing.
It'd be torture.
Exactly.
Well, I was just wondering about laughter, and I remember walking when I was running for a school board office. I decided that I was going to visit the school unannounced, one of the schools in our county, and so I just walked in, and they couldn't stop me from being there, so I just kind of sat in the cafeteria, and the children came in for lunch, and they were happy and laughing. They were just so glad to be, seeing each other, because not all the children are in the same classes, with their friends. So they got a chance to see their friends for I don't know, maybe 45 minutes for lunch, laughing and having a great time. And it wasn't like it was a big food fight. It was just they were just glad to see each other, kind of like the beginnings of a cocktail party when everybody's shaking hands and giving hugs and that kind of thing. It was that kind of a mood. Well, it didn't last very long, because the the person in charge, the adult in the room, went over to the light switch and turned off the lights, and basically told the children to knock it off, stop having fun, and they were yelled at. They were yelled at for being children, and not good, not good. So, stunts like that by people in supposed authority can ruin it for the whole day, and if they keep it up, they can ruin it for the whole year. And as a matter of fact, I asked the students if they enjoyed being in school, and nobody enjoys it. Nobody enjoyed being in that school. Like, they would try day after day after day to have a good time and be vibrant and enthusiastic, and they were shut down at every turn by the administration. So, Dr. Shealy, I guess laughter really is a good medicine. When we come back, I'd like to talk more about supplements that we should take to improve nitric oxide. Dr. Shealy's recommendations coming up in just a couple minutes. You can get Dr. Norman Shealy's newsletter absolutely free if you'd like. normshealy.com, N-O-R-M, Shealy, S-H-E-A-L-Y.com, or Shealy Wellness, S-H-E-A-L-Y, wellness.com. Dr. Shealy, we're talking about the importance of nitric oxide in regulating blood pressure, and we can improve and enhance that by taking some supplements, can't we?
Oh, of course. There are lots and lots of things that, because we don't live in nature anymore, that I think we have to take as supplements. And among those is vitamin C. You'd have to eat a bushel of oranges to get what I would consider an optimal amount of vitamin C. And there are very good reasons to support that, at least 10,000 years ago, we lost the ability to make our own vitamin C. Guinea pigs and people are the only ones that we know that can't make their own vitamin C. And 60
Our
milligrams...
dogs can, right?
I'm sorry?
Our dogs can manufacture their own vitamin C, can't they?
Vitamin C. Horses make their own vitamin C. Beef make their own vitamin C, but we don't. And a wonderful study done back in the 70s showed that, an optimal amount is at least 1,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C. That is 14 times the so-called recommended daily intake. So that's one at the top of my list. Another is astaxanthine. Astaxanthine is the strongest carotenoid related to beta-carotene, but much, much, much stronger. 4 milligrams is probably equal to 25,000 units of beta-carotene. And we need that. We can't get by without it. Of course, omega-3s, we need those, and we need vitamin E, tocotrienol being the best of those. That's in sunset, Kyone sunset. So there are a number of these things that we're better off. We're going to be healthier. It's going to help our brains. It's going to help our bodies, our immune system, if we take extras.
Dr. Shealy, when I was in school, starting at the earliest grade I can remember, I cannot remember a single one of my instructors or teachers or educators or mentors saying to me, "Hey, Vinny, look, I want you to do the minimum amount of work. I want you to do the minimum." I want you to do the minimum performance that we require here in class. No one has ever said to me, "Do the minimum." But you just mentioned the minimum daily requirement. Now, I don't give my cows the minimum amount of food, the minimum amount of supplements. I don't take the minimum amount of supplements. I certainly wouldn't give any of our animals or our family the minimum. So, Dr. Shealy, here's my question. If we stay with... And a financial advisor would never say, "Look, I'll tell you what, hire me and I'm going to get you the minimum amount of return that we can."
Well, that's true today, isn't it?
yeah, they're doing a great job at getting us to the minimum or below. But what I'm trying to get to is, why would we take the minimum? Why would we want to have the minimum amount of health, the minimum amount of vitality, the minimum amount of nutrition? Why would we settle for the minimum daily requirement?
Well, it's part of government nonsense, of course.
I remember, I couldn't believe it. I was sitting with a principal of a elementary school system in Virginia, and we were talking about the school lunch. And so we're in the cafeteria. I think he had 2 packets of ketchup. And he said, now, he held one of them up. And this is like a child-sized ketchup pack. So if you went to a fast food joint, you'd have a bigger ketchup pack than this. And he said, now this is a vegetable. This is ketchup. And so this counts. The government counts a pack of ketchup as a vegetable.
And French fries are not either, by the way.
Yeah. What I'm saying is we can't believe these guys. I mean, I think they work very hard at confusing the issue. And so minimum daily requirement to me is not even a suggestion. I wouldn't consider it even a suggestion. It's below a suggestion. So that's why I wanted to discuss that with you. So when you see on a vitamin, if a person's just taking a once a day type vitamin and it has the minimum daily requirement, that's not enough, right?
You bet. That may keep you from getting scurvy, but it won't give you optimal immune health.
There you go. And Dr. Shealy, you had talked about saunas. And one of the things in the article that you sent me from Dr. Mercola is he recommends taking a warm bath. So that is, a warm bath doesn't mean hop in, hop out, right? That means stay in there for a while and detoxify your body through the pores of your skin?
Well, I do that probably at least 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I stay in a minimum of 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, it just feels good. It's rejuvenating.
We don't have a bathtub installed here at the house yet. I think it's on the list, probably somewhere on the list. We have showers, and we've only been here 8 years, so I've got plenty of time to get one installed. But what I do is we have a very low volume, high pressure shower head, and it uses very little water. But what it does is it's almost an atomizing of the water, if you will. It comes out in almost like a mist, and I set it to really a high temperature, and I don't feel right until I take a morning shower. So first thing, I'm up, I'm in the shower, and I think I'm doing some detoxification with this mist, very hot shower for like 5 minutes. And maybe it's not long enough, but that's what I do. So is that one of the reasons why personal hygiene is important, to detoxify the skin of the toxins that are pushed out through the skin from the body? Is that one of the purposes? Okay.
Just water, even without soap, is partially detoxifying because it washes away. And if you don't, the sweat stays there, and it just evaporates, and you got all those chemicals on your skin.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at Thomas Jefferson, our puppy, our Mastiff, this morning, and I was wondering, Dr. Shealy, have you considered working on an essential oil to turn ticks and fleas away from domestic pets?
Well, there is one.
Okay.
It's cedar oil.
All right.
And it comes as cedarcide, CEDARCIDE, and it works beautifully.
Okay. I'll tell Thomas that he's going to get some after the expo. Cedarcide.
Sounds good.
Okay. He'll appreciate that. And high blood pressure. That's a pretty serious threat to our health, isn't it? Isn't it a silent killer? High blood pressure.
Oh yes. I mean, it's roughly 40% of all Americans have high blood pressure. Less than half of them have it controlled, even when they're on antihypertensive drugs. So it means that 1/4 minimum of all people remain at risk because of untreatable high blood pressure.
40%. Dr. Shealy, do you think that is going to be one of the biggest killers of us, high blood pressure, I guess, and maybe diabetes?
Oh, it already is. It contributes to heart disease as well as stroke.
I remember when I was in grammar school, one of my boyhood friend's father had a stroke, and I didn't know what a stroke was. It doesn't sound like it's so bad. It's just a stroke, right? Well, it paralyzed this man on one side, and I remember seeing him in a wheelchair. He was overweight back then, not really morbidly obese, but just overweight, and he didn't know what to do with his arm. One arm didn't work right as a result of the stroke, so he would lift up his arm with his other hand and place it over his head. He would drape his whole arm over his head. It was ridiculous looking, but his arm didn't work. His arm did not work as a result of the stroke, and he was in a wheelchair. One day he's fine, next day he's in a wheelchair and his side doesn't work. So a stroke is a pretty serious thing. What can we do to prevent getting a stroke, Dr. Shealy?
Well, at the top of the list, of course, is to keep your blood pressure normal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Second is to keep your blood vessels flexible. And third is to keep your weight normal. That is a body mass index of 18 to 24. By the way, my body mass index is down to 20. And
down to 20?
Yeah, it used to be 20. Well, 18 to 24 is ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, eat right and exercise and sleep. The normal, healthy things.
Mm-hmm. And sunshine.
Well, sunshine, and, that's good for your brain, your memory, your mood, and your overall health. No question about it.
So Dr. Shealy, if I were a person that were taking a college exam, let's say it was a seriously important exam, would I do better if I got an hour's worth of sunshine? As a male, let's say I took off my shirt and went out on a nice warm day and spent an hour in the sunshine. Would my memory improve? Would my brain function better than if I did not do that? Yes,
no question about it.
There you go. I mean, I've never had a teacher, Dr. Shealy, tell me, listen, Vinny, we might be able to pick up a couple points if you would just get some more sun or something. I mean, no one's ever said that. It's the first time I've ever heard it. So, class, think about that. Get some sun. Get some sun. Get some sun. And my next question for Dr. Shealy is, what about sun and melanoma? Because some parts of the medical profession are telling us to cover up. Don't get sun and apply sunscreen. Isn't that poison? We'll find out from Dr. Shealy when we come right back. Get Prepared Expo, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Coming up. Tell all your friends. Now, I've mentioned over the last couple months that Genesis wants me to be on camera when I'm doing this broadcast, and it's a really good thing that I'm not. I'll tell you why. I just read a post. Your government is tracking you. You know that they have these scanners that read license plates, but it's all over the country. These guys in cop cars, Burbank, Illinois, 7,609. Let me say it a different way. My blood's boiling. 700,000 license plate records have been read and stored by that government. Just of Burbank, Illinois. 100,000 in one small part of New York. North Carolina, 70,000. The cops are reading your license plates with these automated scanners and computers they've got in their patrol cars. These patrol cars that the rest of us certainly could not afford because they're so expensive. They are tracking our every move. Let me say this very clearly, and I'll be the first guy to say this, and I don't mind. Your government has declared war on your privacy. Your government has declared war on your privacy. So if you want to know why we are going to require that any on-duty government type that comes to the expo applies to be at our expo, that's why. They're out of control. I can't believe it. I don't even want to leave the farm. I don't even want to leave the farm because these guys are tracking. They listen to our phone calls. They record our phone calls. They read our emails. They record our emails. They're watching us from the sky. They've got drones. They've got police cars recording our every movement. They know where you've been and when, and they store it. Who are these nosy, peeping toms, these perverts? Who are these people? Gosh. I would imagine following a cop around for a day. Just think about it. Do you think you wouldn't be arrested for following a cop around? Why don't we start doing that? Why don't we start following these guys around and say, no, I just want to make sure that I'm safe, so if I'm behind you, I'll be safe. Gosh, I'm sorry, Dr. Shealy. It makes me so angry thinking about these guys tracking our every move.
I love you, Vince. You know, and I don't mean that in, you know, other than I just think the way you do stuff is great. I mean, you're one of the few people I know who's almost as blunt as I am. And we've got to tell people that, you know, where is the sense of outrage at what's going on with our government? It should be yelled from the rooftops.
I was next to a police car in Marshfield, Missouri, on my way to the meetup, and this car had a tracking device. It kind of looks like, a low-profile red, blue, white light bar, but it's kind of triangular shaped, and this thing reads license plates. It scans for them, it reads them, it automatically figures out whose tags are a day or two or a week out of date. It detects whether the driver of that vehicle or the driver registered with that vehicle has a concealed carry permit. They've got a full dossier on us based on our tags. And it's out of control. They're using our money to spy on us. And as soon as I see Chief Cloudpiler, I'm going to get the exact language for my sign, or maybe I could get that from you, and I'll put up the same sign that you have on my farm, that you have on your farm, that puts the federal government, the state government, and the county government on notice that they are trespassing. Dr. Shealy, if you look at these guys, you know, the census people, they just show up. They just show up and they march around your property. They tag your front doorknob with the GPS system. So, Dr. Shealy, if you look at these guys, you know, the census people, they just show up. They just show up and they march around your property. They tag your front doorknob with the GPS system so they know exactly where your front doorknob is. It's out of control. Dr. Shealy, I'm looking forward to being at the Get Prepared Expo with you and seeing if we can continue that 70% success rate in lowering blood pressure. Dr. Shealy, thanks so much for being with us. Any final comments?
No, I just see you at the expo. That's what everybody should do.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Norman Shealy. He's our senior USAPrepares.com instructor, normshealy.com, Norm Shealy, SHEALY.com. Norm is in Norman, Shealy.com. Free newsletter, I suggest you get it. I do. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.